Good evening and welcome to News Sources, where opinion counts and those with the opinion have a say. Well, tonight we are saying matters media, politics and the complicated security situation in Baringo County. While at it, News Sources is calling on the government of the day to rethink its resolve to ban advertising in private media. The move will not only deny Kenyans a chance to know what their government is doing, but also deny the media the freedom to inform the public. This is News Sources, the highlights at this hour.
Risasi inalia. Toa. Rudi mwenyewe ameanza kutimua mbio anatoroka. Sasa kama naibu wa rais anatoroka, wananchi wako salama kweli?
It is becoming very difficult to sell Jubilee, to market Jubilee, and even to market you as our president for a re-election.
Kariyesula Rafaeli, say as the name, and matter to God. Hormone Masam,
Good evening, my name is Dennis Onsarigo, your host for tonight. Now, the move by the government to ban advertising with private media has been coming. The government has slashed its advertising revenue from 60% in 2013 to a paltry 20% this year. The move now has murmurs of a government determined to gag the media. The government says it is just cost cutting. As we're starting off tonight, our discussion, and joined in the studio is Duncan Ahayamba. Welcome to the studio.
Thank you.
Welcome to the show, rather. Of course, Ibrahim Oruko, journalist. Welcome to the show. Our very own Rosalina Obala, karibu sana. And of course, Nyambega Gisesa from Kenya Union of Journalists. Nyambega, where does this leave us as media?
I've always insisted that this government has very misplaced priorities. As you might be aware, our budget is about 2.7 trillion shillings. Over 30%, which is over 1 trillion shillings, goes to wastage and goes to corruption, to misuse, to embezzlement. So what does it mean trying to, to cut down the wages from, for media advertising? I don't understand. The president alone, every time he's going to the airport, is being escorted by so many cars as if they are escorting a nuclear weapon to the airport.
Roslyn, nuclear weapons aside, the Standard newspaper that you work for carried an editorial the other day saying this is a move likely to cripple the media industry. The media has been struggling to stay afloat because of hard economic times. What is this likely to do?
This is going to really affect the media. Remember in 2015, the Standard Group laid off so many people. In fact, I remember the famous early retirement package that staff were asked to take. And that was a time that we were also transiting to the IT system, the digital platform. Now again, with the slashing of the advertisement, remember it's going to impact directly on revenue because the government is the main revenue source that has been helping us to employ journalists. Now, a company like Standard that has over 2,000 staff and has been laying off since 2015, you can imagine the impact of what the government has done on its staff, especially when we're just 6 months to the elections.
Ruko, the government explanation is very simple, that they're trying to cast court and they have a platform to advertise. They have their own newspaper now in place. I mean, why not go that direction?
No, I think the explanation lacks basis. Because one, I think I see this advertisement as one way of distributing wealth. Government is the highest spender, as she rightly explained. So by giving the newspapers, we are also distributing wealth. It's part of wealth distribution. So the idea of going on its own is not plausible or possible. You may also want to ask, for example, are they now going to open their own shops so that when they want to procure, they procure in their own shops so that they keep money within itself? The answer is no. So this thing largely lacks basis in the sense that it is one-sided. The other side of it, for example, when you want to procure, when you want to buy maybe toilet papers for the government laboratories, for example, where will they go? They have to procure to a private market. And that also part of expenditure. And as I explained, we lose a lot of money through overpriced procurement. You know that. This is not how to. This one is meant to teach somebody a lesson and maybe to gag the media. That's how I will say it.
Haimba, where do you stand with this?
It's confusion as it stands. Remember, this is the government that came on the platform of double-digit economy to grow, and then in its initial stages, they said they even took what they called, they wanted to cut cost, and there was that publicized, the pay cut, that was never effected nonetheless 4 years down the line. And again, yes, they could be targeting to cut the cost by reducing adverts in the media. But again, it might be a drop in the ocean, because you look at the recent term offensive campaign for IAU Commission, how much was used. We hear it's in excess of 4 billion. It was supposed to be tabled in government in terms of how much the government used. That hasn't been put. In terms of what Nyambega has said, when you look at the government, you go into government offices, you might think you are walking into a horticulture farm. Flowers from the reception to the highest office, things that you fail to understand. Why should the government spend on that? And then you look at, in terms of the people who are doing business with the government, private individuals, highly connected, the government's the president's entourage, you looked at the way they are going big in terms of delegations. So them trying to cut down on the media, which is the government is the highest revenue for the media when it comes to adverts, clearly is trying to cripple an economy that is already crippled, because it will have the effects. The trickle-down effect will result into layoffs to a government or a nation that is already challenged in terms of creating job opportunities for hundreds and thousands of young people.
Nyambega, there's a feeling that this has everything to do with elections and is supposed to streamline the media to report in a particular way.
First of all, there's something that Rosalind said about the situation in media in the last 5 years. First of all, as a financial economist, if you look at Kenya in the last 5 years, you know that first the Kenya Times newspaper fell down. People Daily, they fired people. That was in Media Max. The Stars fired people. National Media Group has fired people. Standard has fired people. Even that newspaper that was being done by Gori Semalango, it also folded. Even this newspaper that is being done by this MP from Western, there's a time it was not in production. So the business isn't bad. But in business, you don't, for the economy to grow, the first thing that you do is that you pump more money to the economy so that it can circulate. And the fact that you are heading towards the election, I think this is a move which is made to use, to put the media into a position whereby they can easily be bought and say, now, since you guys don't want to advertise, let's do what you want us to do so that you can give us the revenue.
Rosalind, there is this feeling that there's no doubt that since 2013 the media has not been where it was supposed to be, because there's a feeling that we were in bed with government, we were too much of a PR media more than an inquiring media, as it were. So we find ourselves where a majority of Kenyans will say, you asked for this and you deal with it.
I agree with you. What you're saying is very right, because remember in 2013 we were the first people to go to State House and have a breakfast meeting with the president. And remember, he reiterated and he said that he's committed to media freedom. But if you walk the journey down from 2013 to now, we've had so many laws that tend to claw back media freedom. And that is just an indicator that they are hell-bent to just gag the media. And even when it comes to advertisement, you've had media houses coming up and saying that the government owes us a lot of money in billions. Now, when it comes to now deciding that they're going to have one platform where they advertise and then it is inserted in one, and not all, just one of the dailies, which we don't know has national circulation, as put in the procurement laws, because again, that newspaper must have a national yes, and appeal. But what we are seeing is the government trying to tell us that either you shape in or you shape out. Yeah.
Indeed, let's see how this goes. Now, in what is likely to be an election crisis, the Independent Electoral Boundaries Commission plan to re-advertise two crucial tenders are likely to plunge the Commission into a timeline crisis. The Commission will seek afresh the supply of election ballot papers and the integrated elections management system. The system is needed to monitor voter register verification exercise that is supposed to be starting in May. The Commission does not have the time. However, another crisis in the making.
To me, it's not a crisis, but it's perhaps, whether it's by design or default, that the poll agency itself wants to create sort of some fear maybe because of lack of preparedness or something, because I don't understand why they wanted to procure ballot papers. My understanding, I've voted once in 2013. And I know that every ballot, when you go to do the ballot papers, it will have the candidates. It will have the candidates, not aspirants. It will have who is who. So at what point do you start to procure early, yet you've not, nominations have not been done, candidates have not been cleared, because you're supposed to prepare. You remember the by-election of Makueni County when Senator Mtula Kilonzo Jr. was cleared the 11th hour. They had to affix his, the court ordered that they affix his image on that, because that's how a ballot paper is prepared. So at what point were you procuring ballot papers in January, in February, when party primaries have not been done? You don't know who and who will be contesting. How do you explain that? Clearly, it could have been a case, the agency wants perhaps to create some sort of panic. How do you start preparing for ballot papers?
Faruko, how do you explain a commission coming up with all these, with the kind of time we have left before the elections? I'll agree with Hayamba that maybe ballot papers can wait, but what about this election management system that should have been in place a long time ago and that needs consultation from political parties and many other key players in this election process?
You know, first of all, the issue around elections is now becoming a very, very tricky issue, very sensitive, so that you have the managers advancing any excuse to try to, as he said, scare people. You know, they're under serious scrutiny. There are new guys in town. They don't know what's happening. And most importantly, what he didn't say is that it's the court that ruled that it was wrong for IBC to have procured, or rather to have tendered this thing, when by actually the outgoing commissioners who left under Hassan Isaac. So the question was, were they supposed to tender and leave office? Wouldn't it have waited for the new team to come in and do what is supposed to be done? So everything is possible. I want to believe that everything is possible, only that everybody is scared of holding an election. You give them a chance, they'll keep on pushing it until maybe kingdom come before they hold elections.
There's an election, there is a commission confidence crisis, as it were, for this commission. It's young, yes, but the secretariat has been there for a very long time. Did these people inherit a mess from the former IEBC commissioners, and they find themselves in a place where they have to explain themselves, that in the event there is total failure, then they have an explanation to make?
I think to some extent we can give it to them. But again, the secretariat has been there, just like Oruko was saying it. Remember I think it was in late 2015, we had a meeting with the secretariat and the commissioners that left. And I remember they outlined last year, beginning of last year, they brought out the election operation plan. And that election operation plan had the timelines of everything they were supposed to do. And I remember the CEO then assuring Kenyans and saying that by the fact that the commissioners were leaving and new commissioners coming in was not in any way going to affect the election process. Everything was in place because the engine is the secretariat. So now to come now and tell us that they're going to face a crisis in terms of time, because even if you look at the elections law 2017, they had just adjusted. Something like the procurement was supposed to be done in 8 months, it was reduced to 4 months. So for me, that is not an excuse. It is just somebody sleeping on the job and is trying to prepare people so that when they don't do their job, then they will say, we told you earlier.
We had a similar crisis in 2012 where we got to a point, tenders were cancelled, people went to court, and we had government-to-government procurement of BVR kits, and it was a total collapse. These things did not work. Are we likely to be moving towards the same direction, where it gets to a point to be practically impossible to have tenders in place, have them reviewed, if someone goes to court, and then people get to a point and say, you know what, government had to step in and do this?
I think what happened to our country in 2013 is the same reasons why even when the Mzungu came to Africa, to Kenya, the first thing they brought was the Bible. They didn't first bring the railway, because we don't appreciate the importance of this technology and why you should have these things at this time. However, I'd say that I have some confidence in the new chairman, IBC chairman Chebukati, but the problem is the senior officials at the secretariat. I think it's time that Chebukati also realizes that there's a problem which is stemming from inside the commission and starts to work around on how to either chase away some of these people or even negotiate with the president so that they can be appointed ambassadors as it has been before, and that the most incompetent people in government, we appointed them to become ambassadors.
Diplomats.
But the most important thing is that Chebukati has said that there's time to do this process. Of course, there is, we are not very comfortable with the timelines, but we hope that he can be able to work something out.
And maybe, as he says, what do you call it, the Kenya election operational plan?
Yes,
Something.
election.
You know, obviously, in terms of planning, these things are not the Bible or the Quran. They are susceptible to amendments, right? You cannot just put there on a timeline. You think anything can happen. A commissioner can die. People can die. So you must put in place a time frame within which you can also amend your progress. And as he says, the most important thing now is that the new commissioners must have a fresh look at the secretariat.
Yeah.
I think time has come. For me, Ezra Chiloba represents the old legacy.
He has to go.
He has to go. He represents the old legacy because he was the face of the most violent rhetoric from Isaac Hassan. He was very bellicose, just like Hassan. So these commissioners must take the bold step and show him the door.
Chiloba, do you have to go? The opposition coalition NASA is in Meru for the second day running as the stakes for votes in Mount Kenya region heats up. The coalition has described its foray into the region as a success story, but the ruling coalition says the large number of people who turned up were there to have a look at who is in town. Take a listen.
Kama serikali itachukua hatua. Sasa ile ambayo anaongea namna hii, risasi inalia. Toa. Ruto mwenyewe ameanza kutimua mbio anatoroka. Sasa kama naibu wa rais anatoroka, wananchi wako salama kweli? Wako salama kweli? Si wameshindwa? Si serikali imeshindwa? Nikishindwa wafanye nini? Waende wapi? Waende wapi? Ngapi nasema waende nyumbani nione kwa mkono.
Kayamba, anything to worry about for the ruling coalition?
Very. I watched look at that sea of humanity that we witnessed in Eldoret, then 2 days later in Meru. These are areas, in as much as they've said nobody has any stronghold and the DP has given them these blessings that they can venture into their turfs. But when you look at the sea of humanity that we witnessed at the inaugural rally and then Meru and the chantings of Uhuru must go, clearly the government, if it cares to listen, it really needs to think and rethink and counter, because it's not a good show that is going out there. Already elections are won on perceptions and propaganda, but perception the most. The fact that in Eldoret there was that hue and cry of Uhuru must go. Then Meru they watched. They picked from where Eldoret left. I'm yet to know what happened, what transpired in Nithi. And these are traditionally Jubilee strongholds. There's cause for alarm because it created sort of a euphoria that we witnessed in the country in 2002, the NAC wave. So for Jubilee think tanks, they really have to move with speed and counter that wave. Otherwise, they could as well start making their concession speeches.
Nyambega, it's too early to say that, Kayamba, but someone will say that this is not the first time Raila Odinga is going to Meru, and this is not the first time people are coming out in large numbers to welcome him. I mean, what is different? They were there in 2013, yes?
There are things that you have to appreciate. One, first in the 2013 election, Raila did not defeat Moi Kibaki because of two reasons. One of them was because of Kalonzo Musyoka. The other one was because of Tharaka Nithi. And you can see the kind of reception that Raila or the NASA team received today. First there was the defection of the brother to Professor Kindiki. I think the leader of majority in the Senate. Professor Kindiki is one of the most respected agriculturalists and is also one of the most respected local leaders. And of course, the number of MCAs who have already defected from Jubilee to Chap Chap or something, probably it might not translate to votes up to now, but there's something very wrong. Today in the morning, I listened to Lintunu speaking. He was being interviewed on NTV, and they said something very important, which I was also very shocked, that the people of Meru have not decided on who they vote for the presidency. I expected at such a time for him to say that up for now, this place is sealed for Jubilee.
The same member of parliament is on record saying today that the opposition is likely to pick 5 out of the 9 constituencies in Meru. Where does this leave Jubilee? Is it just perception? Is it a group of people think maybe things are changing, but they are not actually changing?
I think after what we saw in the US, a Trump surprise, and we also saw the Brexit, and what we are seeing now, you cannot rule anything. But again, we cannot say that by the crowd that we have seen, that already it's an upper hand for NASA. Because again, if you remember, if you listen to Wetangula speak in Eldoret, he said, we've had these numbers. We had them in 2013. But when it came to voting, we did not get these numbers. So again, fine, let them come. But we hope that these numbers that we are seeing will translate into votes. For Jubilee, it's no longer comfort zone. They should get out now and counter. Because just like Nyambega and Haemba said, elections are won on perceptions, propaganda and all that. And if NASA can play their game well, they can turn tables.
Where is the president? Where is the president of the Republic of Kenya?
Yeah, that's what I wanted to say. Maybe there's a problem. I want to see this debate from the other side. Jubilee, one is in a disarray, right? Ruto versus Gideon Moi on one side, the president is gone a wall. I have not seen him. Things are happening. I am seeing in Baringo, I can't see the president. I'm seeing the deputy president issuing orders, shoot to kill. You know, so whatever you say, for now, Jubilee is in total disarray. Total disarray.
Let's stick with the crowds. Lately, the opposition alliance, NASA, has been pulling huge crowds in areas perceived to be Jubilee strongholds. Political pundits have been quick to point out that Raila Odinga always pulls crowds that rarely turn into votes, as the opposition struck the right chord this time. Again, Haemba.
I've always, and every time I sit down when I'm doing political analysis, I keep asking the so-called pundits. 2013, what was the margin between CORD and Jubilee? Paltry 650,000, despite all that. So whoever will always talk of Raila is a crowd puller that never translates in votes, perhaps I might be wrong, but those are the characters that are sort of burying their head in the sand. If in 2013, with all that mobilization, the ethnic push, the ICC protest vote, and the margin was only 650,000 or 700, but of course they will say 800 or so, but we know that it was 6.1 against 5.4. So I'm poor in mathematics, but I'm sure it's not. But I'm sure
Extremely, yeah.
But I'm sure it's not.
Just to help you understand this, Haemba, the difference between Raila Odinga and Uhuru Kenyatta's election in 2013, yes, for them to cross the threshold of 50+1 was 8,000 votes only.
Exactly.
4,000.
And that's what I'm saying.
4,000, not 8.
Yes, and that's what I'm saying.
Votes.
Whoever will say that Raila is a crowd puller that doesn't translate into votes, I think they're in another planet.
But also, let us also put this thing in proper context, because he is accusing some pundits of trying to maybe cheat. We also go back to that 2013 poll, because there are so many issues surrounding that poll. So far, we do not have an official figure. Okay? The Isaac, that man who spoke bad English before he left office, he never at any point gazetted the official results arising from the 2013 election. So I do not know how we are getting these figures, I say, because officially we have...
He actually did.
No, he refused to take oath.
Yes. He gazetted
because
they were gazetted.
Several figures were gazetted internally.
But when he was asked to take oath, when he was asked to
take oath, he
declined.
He said he's a Muslim, as if we employed a Muslim, not an individual. So the issue around these figures, our elections are perverted. You know, there's nothing true about our elections. I cannot, as an analyst, use the 2013 elections or 2007 elections for purposes of analysis, because the figures just don't add up. There's a figure of 2 million that is being said every day of additional people who voted and went back to the graves. We cannot just ignore this matter, however much we want to pretend otherwise. We must talk about it.
And you know, the most important thing, talking about the crowds issue, whether they translate to votes, I had a chance of sitting down with Raila Odinga this week and also other NASA leaders. No, it's not an issue of congratulations. And one of the things I wanted to ask him is that you keep on claiming that the election was rigged in 2007, in 2013. What are you doing this different? Do you think that these numbers that we see in crowd, they translate into votes? Because these are the greatest word of any person, of any newsmaker. And they told me something very important, which the kind of organization that is put in place. All these guys who come to the NASA rallies, there's a team that monitors who comes. There's a team that always updates its communication. There's a team that knows these are how we perform. These are the local leaders who attended. And there's already teams in place that are doing what they are calling as adopt a polling station. They are looking at every polling station, who is going to cover this polling station, volunteers will fund. These are efforts to assist in translating these crowds into votes. And
Roslyn, quickly before we take a break, are we likely to see an election where it will not be about tribes but personalities or issues in August?
I think we are deviating from personalities and ethnicity and regional balance and stuff, because if you look at our leaders, they try to send a message that resonates with the people. If you look at what happened in Eldoret, most of the speakers were talking about fertilizer, agricultural inputs, and all that. That one resonates with the people directly. Now, they went to Meru again, and they're talking about Miraa and the other issues, and you know, that has never been our politics. Our politics has always been, this is our son. We are supporting our son. So you have to elect your son or your brother or your sister to be in government. So the moment we deviate from that and address the real issues, if you go to Nyanza, what are the issues affecting Nyanza people? If you go to the coast, why should we have slogans of Pwani si kwetu, si Kenya? So when we turn that narrative of how we campaign and the people and the political platform face each other based on the issues and not personalities and not what they've done, but figures, Auditor General's report, Control of Budgets reports, what people are seeing, that you can tell a Kenyan that this NYS money will trickle down and affect a mama mboga out there, then I think that's the area we are going.
Have these issues that are being addressed by opposition leaders or being pronounced upon by opposition leaders affecting or denying Jubilee a voice in these regions?
Yes, and you look at the hue and cry in Baringo, to an extent that none other than the regional coordinator Wanyama Musiambo, the deputy president themselves, they've said they are considering declaring that place as insecure. The Red Cross, for the first time, they've suspended operations. You go to Meru, they were being asked, there was $1 billion that was set aside to cater for your national cash crop. You go to Rift Valley, as Roslyn said, they are asking people about the waiver of some debts in some other parts of the country. So unlike Western sugar, the pan paper. So unlike 2013, where it was about saving our sons or against the persons who set them up, I do think that 2017 largely it could be issue-oriented. And
gentlemen and lady, we must take a break. But before we do, we are asking you tonight, do you believe Jubilee government is losing support in its strongholds? Do you believe the Jubilee government is losing support in areas they command a lot of support? Tweet me at Dion Sarigo at KTN News. Taking a short break, we'll be back.